Hey everybody, good to see you all. Awesome day 24. Happy Christmas Eve day if you're celebrating. Um, Again, always very happy to see you. So we spent the last couple days essentially listening, right? Being mindful of the moment, hearing the world, and hopefully you were able to, by juxtaposing the normality of the moment, right? The sounds of your space that you are obviously very familiar with, juxtaposing or marrying them with the concepts of the Om. Hopefully, by the end of that mindfulness session, essentially, you were actually able to perceive the world, perceive your moment in a sort of fresh way. Maybe it became more expansive. Maybe you reframed what you heard as the Om, or somehow you sensed that your tiny moment was integrally connected to the expansiveness of what reality is, and the moment itself became more. And so, that's sort of how this process works. The yogi, spends so much time sort of demolishing their constructs of reality, their concepts that exist in their intellect, things that we have learned through our parents and through society, which often steer away from these spiritual motifs. They work to demolish all of that and then rebuild in that mental space, the temples of these divine sort of concepts. And so it leads to this wonderful enchanting moment where a new mind encounters an old world, and it seems very sort of profound, at least to us. And so what we're going to start doing now is we're going to get back to chanting the Om, through the duration of our practice. But we're going to move into studying the actual symbol, right? So it's this reverse 3. Hopefully you know what it looks like. It has a little monkey tail, something like that, and then a swoop on top, and then a dash on top of the swoop. So the Om symbol. The Om symbol itself, just like every other dimension of the Om, is laced with meaning that is meant to, build the practitioner's relationship to the technique, but also reshape the practitioner, the yogi's vision of the world. And so essentially the Om, the symbol itself of the Om versus the phonetic the phonetic sound of the Om, versus the actual sort of technique of mantra, of chanting, the symbol is a map. It's a map to help guide the yogi into the correct direction towards nirvana. And simply said, that correct direction is internal. We have to look into ourselves, which is what we're doing when we meditate. And then what we encounter immediately, if we have the ability to sort of be still for any length of time, we encounter the mind. And so the mind is seen to become this labyrinth where without guidance, and this is sort of the need for the guru, or without serious passion, we can get lost and entangled in our desires or in our fears, or in the normality or in the intensity of our thoughts, and it becomes very difficult to sort of make our way through that. But the Om symbol suggests you have these 3 essential territories of the mind. That's the reverse 3, the monkey tail. And then you have the overall nature of the mind, which is this top dash, which is essentially saying the mind isn't as real as you think it is. And then you have that top sort of a swoop on top, which is that stating to us there is an experience inside us that is beyond thought, which is what Patanjali says. It's what all of the yogis are sort of whispering through their styles and commentaries. There's an experience in us that is beyond our thought process, and when you sit next to it, or when you sit as it, the world is seen to be uniquely and powerfully beautiful, and that's what we're all going for. And so really quickly, the swoops, the 3 territories of the mind are unconsciousness. So you want to think when you're asleep and you're not having any dreams, and you wake up the next day and you say, wow, I had a really good sleep. I was like knocked out cold. That is the unconscious state of mind, and that's called sushupti. And so the twist here is that yogic philosophy believes that you are conscious. Consciousness never turns on or off. You are conscious, but you are conscious of nothing. So your body shuts down the bridge between the brain and the ears, the brain and the eyes, the brain and the body. And so consciousness only beholds nothingness. And so this is a very pure state of consciousness. And sages like Ramana Maharishi state, who can say if it's true or untrue, but they state, even when I'm in unconscious sleep, I am aware of the I. I am aware of that sort of spark of consciousness. And so that's the first swoop. And you want to think, okay, I've had those, great night sleeps where I went to bed and I woke up and there was nothingness, and I'm only faintly aware of that nothingness. But in that, there's a little bit of space to empathize with the idea. The second swoop, so underneath, that makes the bottom half of this reverse 3, is called Jagrat. And Jagrat is waking consciousness. So it's what we experience, all the time. It's what we're experiencing right now. It's what we associate as consciousness, Jagrat. So now you have these two forms of consciousness to compare against. And in that consciousness, the idea or the construct is already diversified. And the final swoop, that little monkey tail, is called Swapna, which is the dream state. So when you have, dreams, however lucid they may be, you're dreaming of, 2 moons in the sky, or your childhood self, or pets that may have passed, or dragons, or dinosaurs, whatever it might be, that is another form of consciousness. And so if you take the time to contemplate, and you're like, yeah, my life is sort of orchestrated through these three modes of the mind, yet there's a common sort of unchanging element, and that is the awareness that beholds them. This little thought experiment gives us sort of a visceral or tactile sense of what the goal of yoga is and what we are trying to occupy when we are chanting, when we are in stillness, and when we are in silence. And it gives us a sense that is where I need to stay. Now that I know that what I'm trying to behold is the observer that observes these 3 modes of consciousness, when I occupy that state, the myth is my life will organize. Harmony will sort of move, more powerfully through my body, through my world, and through my existence. All I have to do is retract into that observer. I have to let go of the steering wheel and let the layers of my being and the layers of my mind run their course. I only sort of, exist as Bhairav, that thing beyond the fluctuations. And so you have those 3 swoops. The top sort of swoop on top of the main symbol of the Om represents Maya. Maya is the ocean in which Vishnu, right, the blue man resting on the snake god, the ocean represents that sort of, that concept of Maya, which is saying the 3 swoops of the Om, the 3 sort of natures of consciousness, are underneath illusion. They are part of the illusion. So when you're meditating and you think this, or you think that, or you feel this, or you feel that, the yogi existing above Maya, like Vishnu, waking up into a higher reality, knows, I'm not going to react to this. I'm not going to react to my mind. I'm not going to react to its reaching. I'm not going to react to its grasping. I'm not going to react to its aversion. I'm not going to react to that memory. I'm not going to react to that thought. I'm not going to react to that sensation. I will remain sort of detached from all of it. And that proves very, very, very difficult for us. And that is, if you're having trouble in practice at any time during your journey that lasts decades, you want to consider it's because you have falsely considered that your mind is true and that your mind is real. And this takes us all the way back to these 2 obstacles we're trying to sort of break apart, these kleshas, avidya and asmita. Asmita, we grab onto our identity. We think the mind is real. We think our opinions matter. We think our belief systems are accurate. And the yogi is saying, while they might be useful within the dream, they separate you from truth. They separate you from that higher reality, satya loka. So just things to consider. We're going to continue exploring the symbolism of the actual symbol Om. But what we're going to do today is we're going to go back right to chanting, and this is sort of the key point that I think will inform your practice. Before these ideas can make sense, you want to consider that you're sort of operating in Jagrat. You're operating in a waking, natural state of consciousness. You are subconsciously thinking of all the things you need to do. You're measuring time. You're trying to figure this out because you think there's a goal, because you think you're here and you want to be there, or you think you're there and you want to be here. And all of this subconscious strategizing and prioritizing, these agendas that populate and essentially pollute our thought process, they suspend our capacity to behold these concepts in their purity. They suspend our ability to perceive the divine. And so after chanting, I'm going to say these things much more briefly, and you should find that it all hits you harder. It's like, yeah, I do have 3 states of consciousness. Wow, that's sort of cool. wow, I can comprehend that there is a fourth mode of consciousness that beholds all three. Wow, that's really impressive. And as these thoughts land, because you've changed your physiology, you'll look back out into the moment and behold them in a more mystical way. And so the key point, besides all of these ideas, is that by being still, by breathing very, very deeply and slowly, and by chanting, which pushes more oxygen into your blood and relaxes your nervous system through the vibrations, and focusing the mind on these subtle experiences, your mind literally opens like a lotus flower. And in that process, as you just physiologically relax yourself, you are more willing to behold these expansive and profound ideas, making the world more and more beautiful through choice, through mechanic choice. So, really awesome stuff. Really important to understand that in terms of understanding how your practice works. It's all really physical. What we say at the end can be anything. Think of gratitude. Think of Vishnu. Think of Shiva. Think of a burning bush. Think of stars. Think of this or that. That will land because life is inherently divine. All things are divine. The Buddha held up a flower one day. That's it. And it was one of his most legendary practices because his students did other things to see a flower for what it was. Cool. So what we're going to do, as we always do, posture 1, come to Bhumi Sparsha Mudra when you touch peace, and then we're going to chant the Om. O-M. No more A-U-M. Now O-M. Om. Awesome. Good work. Happy to see you all, of course. Let's get started. Hips tilt forward, tall spine. Wrists on knees, nice straight arms. Rotate your elbows down to the floor. Maneuver into some symmetry. Lengthen your spine a little more. Tilt your hips forward a little more. And so what you should feel here is that your hip flexors, tiny space in the front of your hips, near your hip creases, there's tension, contraction. So you're literally pulling the pelvis forward, which is going to help you extend through the spine. If you're sitting cross-legged, tuck your heels into your thighs or into your shins a little bit more to feel the contraction of your leg muscles. And so your base is very firm. And one last time, straighten your arms. Hands are held open. The breath of peace. Steady inhales. More than yesterday, more than any day before this, prolong your exhale. And so don't be afraid of perfection, the supreme ideal. Work towards a perfect breath. Work towards perfect stillness. Work towards perfect wakefulness. And in that, work towards perfect consciousness and a perfect moment. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. But as you sit constructing your moment, constructing your practice, believe that it is out there. Bring a finger to each thumb. And the second your fingers touch your thumbs, think of specificity. You are finite. This moment is a precise moment in the timeline of infinity. It's you, the internal thing, the small thing, the innermost thing, and then it's the world, the expansive thing, the boundless thing, the incomprehensible thing. And so I want you to consider, how do I manifest this peace? How do I generate this sacred tranquility that defines all mystic practices? By letting go. I soften the borders of my being. I soften my grasping. I soften my rejection. I soften my intellect. And in that tiptoe beyond my own limits, I want you to consider that softening, stepping beyond our own limits, which are vastly intellectual, is a physiological process. Every perfect breath you take, a link in the chain dissolves. You have to have faith that the body is actually steering the mind. And so let's continue working with precision, just 3 breaths. After this 3rd breath, bring your hands to heart center. Intentionally construct that peace. And so as the mind is quieted by a strengthened parasympathetic nervous system signal, life is allowed to come into our actual bodies as it always does, uncensored and unfiltered. We lace that unfiltered sensation with the beautiful concepts of yoga, and in that create for ourselves a powerful moment. Bhumi Sparsha Mudra, left hand Prajna wisdom, right hand Upaya, the trick of the Buddha. The earth is my witness. Shunyata Drishti, very useful. It wakes you up into your practice. And so for the next 15 minutes, Om. Just track the vibration, the actual resonance rise from the chest, Hridayasya, up into the throat, up into the jaw and face, and as you collapse the mouth into the focus on the vibration in the top of the head. Perfect inhales, listening to that silence. Smooth Oms, an ascending vibration from the chest to the skull. Over and over and over again. One last time, don't be afraid of perfection. It's out there. The perfect breath, the perfect Om, the perfect moment. When you're ready, start your practice. Deepen your focus. Feel, don't think. Let the world exist around you. And now whisper the Om. Madayam Nad. Deepen your focus. And feel. At its simplest, you are singing to relax your body while holding yourself in a certain way, a posture to provoke wakefulness. And so feel that as you chant the Om. I am awake and relaxed. So relaxed, I'm leaning into non-reactivity. From Madayam, Pashyanti, repeat the Om in the mind, but still feel the vibration rise from the chest up into the head. Again and again, feel, don't think. Have the faith to push back your analysis, to push back your interpretations and your preferences. Only feel. From Pashyanti to the Paranad. Stop repeating the Om mentally and just feel the body buzz. Back to the beginning of our practice, a finite point within the boundlessness of the reality we have. The tiny you inside the big ocean of the world. Let the vibration of your body be your springboard into mindfulness. Associate every vibration as the Om. And hear the world from that philosophy. Slow down your breath. It's always a good choice. Notice that simultaneously wakes you up and calms you down. And so after just 15 minutes of chanting, the Om is just a detail. 15 minutes of singing mindfully. 15 minutes of humming any sound, the body will relax. And if you make the choice to leverage that, you can apply it to the absorption of enormous ideas and sincere truths. So from this state of being, appreciate that you are seeking something, as we all are seeking something. Every moment of our lives is defined by dissatisfaction and desire. What to eat, what to do, what to watch, who to text, what website to browse, where to go, what are my goals, what are my fears, what are my responsibilities, what to say, how to hold my body, what to wear. And so we seek and we seek and we seek. And all yoga says is, what you seek is in the other direction. What you seek is literally within you. And so in that you must literally look into yourself. What we discover when we take the time to look within is that it is more complicated than we considered, more difficult to traverse. And so the philosophies of yoga have organized these internal landscapes, miraculously discovering that they are essentially uniform across all of us. The Om is a map. And so from here, just reflect. That's all we can do now. You have 3 modes of consciousness. Think about when you're dreaming, and how when you are in the dream, your dream is the only reality. A cliche analogy at this point, but it's true. and that you are beholding the dream body and beholding the dream scenario and beholding the characters in that dream as if it was real. And so that dream reality, as intangible as it is swapna. It is a mode of consciousness. What's more valuable than the dream themselves is the consciousness that beholds it. And so just think, a couple breaths. And then you wake up into the day and you have your real body. And you encounter your real friends and your real associates, and you move through real cities and real streets and eat real food in a real world. And all of that reality is processed through the mind. You behave in a certain way, a way that feels more you. That consciousness, that identity, laced with morals and social norms, laced with memories and desires and goals and routines, what you are right now, that is Jagrat. Just notice that you are aware of this dream body, aware of this real body in this real world. And so what is aware of who you are? Mental gymnastics, go back to the dream analogy. Think of a dream. What is conscious of the dream? Now the most difficult to actually understand because it's so abstract, unconsciousness. Just imagine a deep sleep and that deep blackness. And imagine existing in that blackness with no feedback, no sense of touch, no sense of smell, no sense of sound, of sight. But you are aware of that blackness, aware of that deep rest. What is aware of that? Hands to heart center, lengthen the spine. And so those three modes of consciousness, which truly define the entirety of our lives, are represented in the main symbol, the main structure of the Om. Then there is a top swoop, which represents Maya, which suggests all of those states of consciousness. Every part of what we would define of as ourselves and our reality is illusion. It is not the truth. It is ever changing, beginning and ending. And in that insubstantial compared to a hidden space, a hidden stability. And so that's the swoop. The top dash is the Turiyam, the fourth state of consciousness. Just like Shiva said to Parvati, that which beholds. And so sense right now that you are witnessing your life, you are witnessing Jagrat, you are witnessing waking consciousness, but focus on that witnesser. Thumb knuckles to third eye center, inside the body, inside your thoughts, good or bad, it is irrelevant. Inside this moment, peaceful or stressed, focused or distracted, as long as you sense that consciousness, Turiyam, there is somehow an underlying peace, a boundlessness. Sincere moment, just one more breath. Release your wrists to your knees, tall spine. Hold your mudras. There's no greater gift we can give ourselves than this sort of exploration. And if we take a second and actually discover this mode of consciousness, it immediately opens up our world. Hopefully you can feel that. Let's take one more Om together. Full breath in. Nice and gentle. With an inhale, open your eyes. The real world rushes in.